welcome back. And before you get started, before you switch off, before you run away, it's not going to be another 25-minute rant about all the things that are wrong with the world and society in general. But what I will say on the back of that last video, which was basically about restricted travel areas and the insidious creep and encroachment upon our freedoms that are associated with the increasing number of restrictions placed on free and independent and occasionally recreational travel. So it's not going to be another 25-minute rant on that. It's just going to be a couple of minutes basically to say excuse me, basically to say a heartfelt thanks to everybody that commented. And believe it or not, that video of all my videos attracted the most responses. And can I say, with one exception, and bearing in mind there must have been the best part of 100 responses all told, with one exception, they were all absolutely positive, constructive, well informed, well considered, very supportive, and exclusively in agreement of the points that I was trying to make. So thank you for that. I mean, there were a couple of responses. One response, I mean, I don't know if I should even dignify it with a response, but I think it was just that one-liner about TMF, which was half joking, don't get me wrong. I like watching TMF, I like watching some of his stuff. I don't watch his, shall we call it, his exotic travel explorations, because I just think, you know, I wish I could afford to do that, so why should I watch you rub it in, pal? Which is a little bit churlish, isn't it? But anyway, good luck to him if he can afford £15,000 to go on a jolly jaunt to the United States and Canada. Fine. Way beyond even my most aspirational dreams, it has to be said. And I think his latest one's back in Canaries, isn't he, or some such. I don't know. Anyway, good luck, carry on. It wasn't an attack on him. And of course, if he didn't have 200,000 plus subscribers, against my very humble, what, 1,800 and odd, then I'm sure he wouldn't get all the gratuities that he gets. So good luck to him, I've no issue with it. But I think somebody thought that it was an unwarranted character assassination on old Andy. I don't know his surname, Andy, because you keep it secret. We'll call you Andy Flyer. And no, it won't. Not at all. But this fella said, the Michelin Flyer and Stuart Fillingham will be more successful than you ever will be. Which was a non sequitur response to anything that featured in that video. It slightly took me back. So I sort of said, well, you know, what's your point? Because the first thing that occurred to me is, number one, you seem to have paired me with Stuart Fillingham, who's got another great channel, very much modern classic motorcycle orientated, with a particular emphasis on Royal Enfield, so very, very close to my heart. And but he's got 90,000 subscribers. So thanks for saying both me and Stuart are in the same subcategory of limited success compared with the great TMF. Oh, whatever. It's not what I'm about, pal. But anyway, I didn't have to round on him. I really didn't have to round on him, because a couple of other people were straight into his ribs. So I thought, fair enough, somebody fighting me battles for me. Works for me. And then there were another chap from the United States, and he's I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning this now, but he basically started off by saying I'm sorry mate, but you're so wrong. So I thought, oh right, well that's a little bit wide range, and you know, which part? Because if you've seen that video, I rambled on about quite a few different topics, albeit that thematically it was probably more or less in the same ballpark. But anyway, so I asked him to clarify, and his next response basically said, there's no point in saying anything to the likes of you, because your mind's made up, you won't listen. I thought, well, how does he know that? Because if you watch that video to the end, you'll see that there's an element of reflection towards the end of the video, which shows a bit of balance, particularly in the sort of climate change debate. So I just really sort of went back to him and basically said, look, you know, these are what my thoughts are based on. I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not into all that. It's dangerous. It's outrageous. I'm not a member of the Flat Earth Society, for God's sake. These are the salient points that I was referring to, and a reflection upon different aspects of the overall debate in terms of, for example, restrictive traffic movements, and the fact that a lot of the concerns over the environment are being used to justify a lot of constraints which are being imposed both locally and nationally, and whether or not that's particularly fair. And I happen to think, obviously, it's very, very unfair and stands to impact long term in a very, very negative way on us as motorcyclists. Because as motorcyclists, this is the point. I mean, yes, a lot of people use motorcycles for commuting as part of their everyday essential means of coping with working life. But in terms of recreational vehicle use, I think as motorcyclists we're right up there, certainly more so than car drivers, I would suggest, because that's what we do, isn't it? We ride for the sense of freedom, we ride for the enjoyment, because it's an engaging process, it's elemental, it's spiritual on so many levels, and it's probably the exception where we use motorcycling on a utilitarian basis as compared with a recreational basis. And it's recreational vehicle use which I think is particularly under threat. So that was the point I sort of made. And to be fair to this fella, he sort of lightened up and he came back and he said, look, this is what it's like in the United States with electric vehicles and one thing and another. So we came to a meeting of minds, which just goes to show. I thought he had a closed mind, he thought I had a closed mind, and when we explored it a little bit further, it turns out that there's a large amount of common ground, and that was good to see. But apart from that, every single comment was positive and supportive, so thank you very much. And it's clear to me that even though that might not be a representative example, it probably is a representative example of recreational motorcyclists, for example. So yeah, a lot of you out there are of like mind, and that gives me no small amount of comfort. Right, so then, so that really, I suppose that's the end of that for now. If you want to see more sort of critiques on what's going like, start again. If you want to see more critiques of what's going on in the world, particularly in the United Kingdom, and particularly as regards motorcycling, let me know. But it's not my intention that this will become one of those lobbying YouTube channels. And although it can be political from time to time, as I always try and point out, it's not party political. Right, so having got that far, what's next? Right, so you should be watching this on a Wednesday, or this will be uploaded on Wednesday. And on Friday's video, Friday or Saturday, try and make it Friday, I'll be uploading a video of the fitting of Givi luggage to the Royal Enfield Interceptor. So you might have seen the video where I fit the mounting frames and all the kit and the luggage onto the Scram 411, and now I'm basically going to be doing the same thing on the Royal Enfield Interceptor. So stick around, stay tuned for that on Friday. Everything supplied by Hitchcock's. Thank you, Hitchcock's. Probably the best equipped, most comprehensively equipped in terms of Royal Enfield retailer in the country. So there we go, and I should touch on this now. There's a new bike coming to the channel. Now, Modern Classic Motorcycle fans, Royal Enfield fans, don't start unsubscribing, please. I've still got the Royal Enfields. I will continue to have the Royal Enfields, and Modern Classic motorcycles are certainly a big part of my life. And but sometimes, you know, you harbour a certain aspiration in relation to a certain motorcycle. Now, there's a certain motorcycle, I bet you won't guess it, but I'll be giving you some clues. There's a certain motorcycle that has a very, very special place in my heart. And the reason for that is that this particular brand and model of motorcycle back in the day was my daily commuting workhorse to various sites right across West Yorkshire when I was a serving police officer, and I worked all across West Yorkshire. And through summer or winter, hail, sleet, snow, gales, you name it, that bike got me to where I needed to be without fail, without exception. And it also took me on some very memorable, sometimes you might even say riotous, recreational pursuits back in the day on the motorcycle rally circuits. If any of you have ever been to or continue to go to motorcycle rallies, you'll know exactly what I mean. They can be quite interesting, can't they? Particularly after a certain time of night, when the old amber nectars are flowing freely, and no doubt other substances. But let me put it on the record that the only mood-altering substance I have ever indulged in has been the malt and the grain. So, but that's what they were like. So I've very fond memories of this particular motorcycle for that reason, including one trip. Blimey, one trip. We had a trip, there was a group of us, and there were a motorcycle rally at a place called Kilcohen in Scotland. And this involved riding up an overnight stay near the borders, and then up through Glasgow and over the Erskine Bridge to a place around about Auburn area, where we were scheduled to catch a ferry just across the Sound there, from a place called, let me think, the Onich, O-N-I-C-H, Onich Ferry, across to the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, which saves you going inland by, you know, somewhere between, I don't know, 70 to 100 miles inland and back. But we crossed a place called Rannoch Moor. I don't know if you've heard of Rannoch Moor, but you go over Rannoch Moor and you drop down into Glencoe, of Glencoe and Culloden fame. But anyway, when we got on following day, when we got onto Rannoch Moor, crikey, we just rounded this bend onto Rannoch Moor, and I'm not kidding you, it must have been a hurricane force even, storm descended on Rannoch Moor. You know, like Rannoch Moor had its own microclimate, and on this particular day, chosen to visit upon us this absolute tempest. And the crosswinds were, I've never experienced anything like it in my life. And the only way that I could stay upright on this bike was to keep going forward, because if it had stopped, and there were occasions when my levels of panic were such that I nearly did stop, but if I had, I'd just been blown over. It was purely forward momentum that were keeping me upright. It was horrendous, and the big tourist coaches coming towards us on this stretch of road, and it were probably only 10 minutes, but it seemed like 10 hours. It was absolutely biblical in proportions. I exaggerate not. So eventually we ended up down in Glencoe, where it was a lot more sheltered, but we were absolutely banjaxed by then. Absolutely physically and emotionally drained from this life-threatening experience of huge huge crosswinds, horizontal rain, suicidal coaches full of American tourists coming towards us, and like 500 foot sheer drops down the side of the road down into the valley below. So we were absolutely rinsed by the time we got there, and in no fit state to take that ferry, which it transpired had been cancelled anyway, but even if it hadn't have been cancelled, we'd have been in no fit state whatsoever to make that crossing and then ride another whatever 50-100 miles to the far westerly point of the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, to this little place called Kilcohen. So I don't know if you know, but there's a big hiker biker friendly hotel in Glencoe called the Clackhagues. So we thought it would be alright there. But what we had failed to take into account was the fact that this was Bank Holiday Monday in Scotland. Now the August Bank Holiday in Scotland, well, it's not August, it's in September. So it's a week after the English August Bank Holiday, which is at the end of August, the last Monday in August. But we'd schoolboy era, we'd not taken this into account. Not that we'd ever been expected to have to stop halfway. So anyway, I went into the Clackhagues, desperately need a room. Sorry, we're full, bank holiday. What are we going to do now? But now this is absolute testament to the hospitality of the Scottish people. The lady at reception, bless her, said, "But I can see you need rest. I can see the state you're in. Let me make some phone calls." And she did a ring around, and 5 minutes later she came back to us and she said, "I found you a B&B in a little place called Kinlochleven," which is actually an old mining town, apparently. We didn't know that. A little place called Kinlochleven, and there's Mr. Sweeney there, and Mr. Sweeney will see you outside Kinlochleven post office in about half an hour. I've told him to look out for you, and he'll lead you to your bed and breakfast, and he'll look after you. So, you know, ordinarily, I tell you what, if that happened in this country, I'd be thinking, aye, what's going on here? But sometimes you have no choice in life, so other than Hobson's choice. So fine, off we go. A little bit sceptical as to whether Mr. Sweeney's going to turn up in his blue Ford Sierra. Look out for the blue Ford Sierra, she said. So we rides into Kinlochleven, which is a strange place. But it's coastal and pretty, but it's also got the remnants of all the mining infrastructure there. So quite a contrast, really, depending on whether you look left to the coast or right up the hillside. So we pulls up into it, outside the pub, sure enough there's a blue Ford Sierra there. And Mr. Sweeney gets out with his big square bottle bottom glasses and this huge toothy grin, walks up, shakes our hands and says, "Hello, I've been expecting you. My name's Mr. Sweeney, follow me." So we're in this one-horse town, followed Mr. Sweeney in his blue Sierra for about 20 minutes, and he takes us into this council estate. I'm not kidding you, it's a council estate. And I'm not unfairly stereotyping, you know, 30 years as a copper, I know what a council estate looks like, you know, wherever it is. And I'm not criticising council estates, believe me, there should be a lot more than there are, in my mind. But anyway, don't get me on the social housing debate. But anyway, we're a council estate, so it's a bit strange. Don't normally find B&Bs in a council estate. It'd be like finding a bed and breakfast in the middle of Buttershore in Bradford. It wouldn't happen. So any road up. So he follows him and he pulls up outside this house, his house, semi-detached council house, and above the door there's this homemade sign. Clearly got this homemade sign that is done using pyrography. You know, where you burn letters in with a pyrography iron. And he made this, and it said Scottish Tourist Board 3 stars, and it like burned in 3 asterisks. So I thought, what's going on here? But the die was cast, you know. We had to get our heads down. We were absolutely starving, absolutely exhausted. So coming in, I'm thinking, well, I don't know what to expect here. Whether we're going to end up, you know, on some moth-bitten old bunk bed, freezing cold, and eating bread and water, if that. But anyway, invites us in, takes us upstairs, and he's converted the majority of his first floor accommodation into accommodation, basically. Bed and ensuite and all the rest of it. It were a complete transformation. It were very TARDIS-like, but TARDIS in 2 senses. One, the size seemed a lot bigger than you would expect looking at the house from the outside, and secondly, the standard of decor and the general cleanliness and presentation of the rooms was completely out of sequence with the rest of this here council estate. And it was like a little paradise, you know. Remarkable. Here you are, here's your room, the rest of it fine. There are 2 pubs down in the bay, and you can get a meal there and one thing and another. And I'll serve breakfast whenever you want it, between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and enjoy your evening. So we went out, found a lovely little pub down by the shoreside. I had venison for the first time in my life. It was absolutely fantastic. I had haggis for the first time in my life as a starter. It were absolutely fantastic. All washed down with a bit of malt whisky, of course, and a few pints. And the next day I remember waking up thinking, well, I wonder what breakfast is going to pan out like. What is it, toast in bed or something? So anyway, went down, and he'd literally shifted all his furniture to one side in his lounge, set up this 6-8 seater table, and it were a proper full Scottish breakfast with all the trimmings and as much tea and toast as he could, or as I could, ram down my fat face, which were a fair bit, let me tell you. So anyway, all of that's by the by, just an interesting little tale about how you can prejudge people, and the hospitality of that gentleman, Mr. Sweeney, and of the lady that referred us to him, was absolutely peerless. And he was a knight in shining armour. And the following day we had a fantastic ride up along the side of the loch. Got on the ferry across from Alnwick over to Strontian and on the Ardmurchan Peninsula. Fantastic rally there on the mainland, overlooking Tobermory, Isle of Mull. Absolutely unforgettable. But the bike I was on, that's the one that has a special place in my heart, because for so many years, from 2000 to 2006, and I put 40 odd thousand miles on the bike, maybe 50 odd thousand miles on the bike in that time, never ever let me down. So I got very fond memories of this bike, and this particular bike eventually, and it would be just after that particular experience here, just after they brought out a new model of this particular bike, and I had the old model. And a lad that I worked with when I was stationed at Huddersfield, he had the new one, and it always used to hurt me because I couldn't afford one, basically, at that point. And yeah, so I'd always sort of said back then, so I'm now going back obviously over 20 years, but I'd always said I'm going to have one of those, you know. I was determined, one way or another, at some point in my life, I'm going to have one of those. And when I retired, I nearly bought one, but I ended up with the BMW K1600 GTL, which probably wasn't the best decision I've ever made. But because this particular bike has not been made for quite a few years now, obviously I was never going to have a new one. Certainly in recent years, I was never going to have a new one because there weren't any. So I just had it in the back of my mind, if one of these comes up and it's the right colour and it's absolutely mint, because that will be the stipulation, and it's low mileage, I'm probably going to have it, regardless of circumstance. But it never seemed to happen. Let me tell you, these bikes, and this might give you a clue, they've normally got astronomical mileage on them. Normally they have very high mileage. Not uncommon to see them with 80, 90, 100,000 plus miles on them, which they will do effortlessly if well maintained. Anyway, cut a long story short, trawling through eBay and Auto Trader like you do, and sure as sure, what do I see? Right bike, right colour, right condition, right mileage, something that comes along once a flood, and it just had to be done. So yeah, I think that's enough clues, don't you? I might slip in some selected pictures. Do you remember that Ask the Family with Robert Robinson back in 70s, in 1970s? Ask the Family with Robert Robinson. All these families that they had on were like mum and dad and two kids, and it'd be two families on a quiz format. I'll tell you, they were all really bright families who used to leave me cold. But one of the categories was where they'd show a close-up photograph of an everyday object, and from that you had to deduce what it was. And if you got it straight away, you got maximum points, and then as the camera panned out, you got less and less points the longer it took you to decide what it was. And you know, really good. Might start looking like an electric razor, and then, you know, when it's pulled out, it's a toilet seat or something, you know, something ridiculous like that. Anyway, I might try something like that. A few little subtle pointers, just a bit of fun, in case you've absolutely nothing better to do with your life. Have a guess. And no prizes for guessing, other than of course your recognition on the channel. So I think that's it for today. Sorry to rattle on again, but I just wanted to express my thanks on all the excellent and positive responses to that last video. Just to tell you what's coming on on Friday, Royal Enfield wise, and just to give you a little teaser as to another bike that I've got. You know, because people are gonna, when they see me on it, people are gonna say, what's he got now, you bell end, what have you done now, what you got now? You know, you can't keep a bike 2 minutes. I've still got the Royal Enfields, okay, but you can have a guess at what this bike is. And Andrew Dyson, my good friend, and Gazza VFR Mitch, my good friend, you're banned, because you know what it is. Alright folks, thanks ever so much for watching again. Listen to me ramble on. Please like and subscribe. Please feel free to leave constructive comments below. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So I'll catch you next time. Okay, toodle pip.